Let's polish this thing up. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This body is still looking great after we painted it in the last video, but like I mentioned towards the end of that video, we need to polish this body. Basically, you can see it best in the hood. The clear coat has what we call some orange peel in it, some trash. You can see that surface just isn't as smooth and pretty as we want. If you can't see it now, maybe you'll understand more when we're finished with this video. But we are going to sand and buff the clear coat on this body. I'm gonna start out wet sanding and then come in with some compounds and buffing pads and really bring this thing back. If you've never seen this process before, some of you may cringe a little bit when we start sanding this shiny clear coat, but it's a very delicate, slow process. We have to take our time. If we sand too much, we'll go through the clear coat and actually hit the paint, which we don't want to do. That'll ruin the entire body. I have 2 to 3 coats of clear on this thing, so I should be able to get just about everything out without harming any of that paint underneath. I'm gonna start with some 2000 grit sandpaper. This stuff is almost like feeling a piece of printer paper if you have never seen this before. It'll take some time, but that should get everything really nice and flat and smooth. We're also using a block, just like we did before in other water sanding videos. I have a whole lot of sanding ahead of me. This normally takes a little while because you have to go pretty slow. So sit back, enjoy the process, and let's get this thing shining really nice. I wanted to jump in real quick after that first little bit of sanding just to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at here. Maybe explain this a little better. You can see now that the clear isn't all shiny anymore. It's pretty dull. What I'm looking for is a smooth surface, a consistent, uniform, dull look like this. It still has a little bit of sheen to it, but we're taking that shiny, polished, finished look away to get rid of all of these wrinkles and dimples and everything you see here. All of the little dots of shininess that you see in that dull is where the orange peel is. It's the variations and the inconsistencies in the clear that we're trying to get out. We're gonna go ahead and make another pass of sanding over this hood now, try to get the rest of this out. We're gonna get as much out as possible before we start buffing. Unfortunately, this is something that we just have to really take our time with, go slow. You see I'm sanding really lightly, really gently, and then wiping it down, letting it dry so I can really check my work like this. I don't wanna go too far, like I mentioned. I know I'm gonna keep repeating myself on that, but that's super important not to sand through the clear. If we hit that paint, this paint job is ruined. For most vehicles and paint jobs, it's a lot of work, but you could save it if you were to go through the clear. You would have to sand down, respray your base color, and then re-clear. But with this, if you watched my painting video, this is a candy color, meaning that it gets darker with each coat you put on. So it would be almost impossible for me to match this color that I have on the truck right now, again, if I had to do any touch-ups. I think that's gonna about do it for the sanding. If you look really closely, you can still see a couple of little specks in there that maybe I could get out, but getting to the point where I'm a little worried about how much clear is left on the body, and I do not want to go through, again, harping on that fact. So now it's time to bring the shine back to this thing. We're gonna do that by polishing. I went ahead and picked up a couple of little attachments for the Dremel. We're gonna start with this wool pad. They're all Velcro to this main attachment. We have a wool pad that we'll start with, like I mentioned, and then we have some foam ones for other steps. We're gonna do a 3-step polish here, first with some compound, then with a polish, and then a glaze. I'll be putting the Dremel on the lowest setting. You can see it spins pretty quick here, even on the lowest setting, so we have to take our time and be careful. The Dremel needs to constantly move on here. If I stay in one spot for too long, it'll burn through the clear, through the paint. Same situation as before, that'll ruin the paint job. So we're gonna have to take our time. I actually think I might swap out to the small one and start off doing the tailgate. I think that'll be a good little test piece. Kind of get a feel for it. I've never polished something this small before, so everyone keep your fingers crossed that I don't go go through the paint anywhere, and let's hope to have a really nice finish. I apologize, both of my GoPro batteries died, so you didn't really get to see me do any buffing on the body itself, but it's all the same process. You can see we got some shine back to these parts now. The compound really does its job, helps get a lot of those sand marks out and brings back that shine. But if you really look closely, you probably won't see it on camera, but there's still a little bit of a haze and some finer scratch marks in the paint that we still want to get out. So that's where step 2 comes in. We have a blue foam pad on the Dremel now, and we're using some polish, and we're gonna go over this all again for the second stage. This is the step where normally I really start to see the paint shine and pop. This stage is always really fun to see, so let's get back to buffing. The last step of polishing is one that, like I mentioned, you guys might not even be able to really tell on camera. You may be able to see a little bit of it if you ever got to see this thing in person though. This is just a final polish. It's a little finer of a polish, gets the rest of those swirl marks out, and it's kind of like a sealing wax as well. We're using a softer red foam pad on the Dremel, and this is the same exact process, just with a different wax here, and that'll really give us that nice mirror gloss finish that we're looking for. And that completes the polishing process. Hopefully you can see it here on camera. Maybe I'll have a little side-by-side comparison of before and after, just the way the paint shines, the finish, to see the difference between the orange peel like I talked about before and some of the trash in the paint to now this really smooth, basically mirror-like finish. You can even see my tools hanging off the wall in the hood here. I have a little bit of extra wax and polish to clean up in the door jambs and stuff like that, but I'm extremely happy with how this came out after just a little sanding and buffing. I say that like it was nothing, but that was a lot of work. Counting by my watch, I probably have about 5 to 6 hours between sanding and polishing. The last stage, and finally, is to assemble the body. Put all of those little details, the door handles, mirrors, windows, all of that stuff on. Like I mentioned, that's gonna be in its own video because I'm pretty sure this video's been long enough. But that video coming soon should be the final video in the build series, because once those parts are put on, we can mount that body onto the chassis and drive this thing around. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments below if you learned anything new in this polishing process. Is this something that you would try on an RC body yourself, a hard body? And also, being that the final assembly would be the last video in the build series, I was thinking about shooting a little bit of some running footage, driving footage at the first car show I take this thing to. Let me know if you guys are interested in seeing a video on that. This has been a really fun build series. I thank you all for all the support on it. Seeing this body and paint finished now is getting me really excited for the end. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those final videos. And as always, thanks again for watching. Peace.